Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. A little bit more breaking news yesterday for the Philadelphia Eagles. John, they just keep shaking and baking. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, J-Mac?
Doing well. Evidently, I'm having internet issues again. We had to slow. Well, I don't know, but we had this pocket where I was having issues, and then it was smooth sailing, and now it's popping up again. It drives me nuts. But anyway, not the best way to start the program. But yeah, Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby is here. So Howie never stops. Right at kickoff of Monday Night Football. So
right,
Howie's not paying it.
I want everybody to settle in. Let's get into the Tank Bigsby conversation. There's a couple different ways to look at it. All right. I think we're going to look at it from the addition of the team and the positives. And I think we can ask the elephant in the room type of questions about Howie Roseman and the Eagles offseason that I think many are thinking and maybe are afraid to talk about. We will talk about them here on Birds 365. John, let's start with the good, or let's start with why we think they acquired Tank Bigsby. They sent a 5th and a 6th round pick yesterday in the evening for Tank Bigsby from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had almost, I think, 800 yards or 700 something yards last year in 16 games as a running back for them, 7 touchdowns. He had 6 kick returns for about 190 plus yards. And now he's on his way to Philadelphia in a running back room that has Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, and A.J. Dillon. John, your first thoughts on the acquisition of Tank Bigsby for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I said yesterday, and I'm already angry, as you know, pre-show, but, I gotta, how do I frame this properly? I'm not pulling kick returner out of my ass because he had 6 kick returns in Jacksonville. Obviously, and you could look at your favorite Eagles beat writer, whoever you like, and you're going to see similar things to what I said on the show last night. And what I wrote about on Twitter, what I'll write about today as a whole, after I get to talk to today's coordinator day. So we'll get to talk to Kevin Patullo. But, it's not, I get it. Yeah, you guys blame the Eagles. All right. If you don't like why they got the kid, if you don't like Will Shipley, if you don't like A.J. Dillon, blame the Eagles. Blame your favorite team. I'm just telling you their mindset behind why they made this deal. And, kick returns were up 70% across the league. They think he can be an impactful potential returner. Can he help at running back? If Will Shipley's out a couple weeks, sure, maybe. But he's not here to replace Will Shipley. Long term, it's probably a good, get somebody that young on a cost-effective deal that factors into it. And you can envision next year and say, maybe A.J. Dillon's not here if he has a good year. And you could say you have a better backup spot. But, he's not here to replace Will Shipley. And everything's about evaluation. And it's not about my evaluation. Again, he had 6 kickoff returns. He was very effective at them. But there's 6 kickoff returns. Trust me. I wouldn't even be mentioning kickoff returns if you were just asking me about the trade acquisition. Right. And that's one of the things when you contact me, we do these immediacies. I say I'm gathering information. I'm trying to figure out why they did this. So again, you can go, I always say, you don't have to listen to me. You can go around to your favorite Eagles beat writer. You'll see similar wording. Don't blame the messenger.
So what's the outlook then in your estimation on the running back room? Do you think they keep all 4? Like if Will Shipley's back?
Yeah, well, that's another.
You think they dress all 4 on game day? How do you see that part of it playing out?
When Will's back, yes. And people say, well, you can't dress 4. They did dress 4 running backs. They just had a fullback. They just did it. And by the way, Ben Van Sumeren was part of the plan for kickoff returns,
right,
which people did not know. They already did it. Just now you have a running back instead of a fullback. You have to have a fullback. No, you don't. No, you don't. Do they help on special teams? Nick said this yesterday in his press conference, talking about something totally different, talking about the back end of the roster. Do you help on special teams? How many times have I said this on the show when we're talking about roster, last guys on the roster? Can you help on special teams?
right.
So, obviously,
Feels to me like, John, like Tank Bigsby is a better running back than A.J. Dillon. And maybe even you could make the argument he's better than Will Shipley. Now, Will Shipley is a young player who doesn't have a lot of experience in the NFL just yet, and maybe he does amount to a better player. But Tank Bigsby had a pretty good year last year for a sophomore player in Jacksonville. That's why I'm not saying you're wrong. That's why when they made the move, though, my mind didn't go right there. It went to another running back. And, we've talked about the way the Eagles offense has become so pass first or so run first, and it relies on Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And, part of me wondered, are they doubling down and making that a triple threat? You don't think that's what they're trying to do here at all, right? Straight kick return.
Again, Will might miss a week or two. And then it'll be Saquon and AJ who just got here, but and he might be forced into some action. And if you're forced into some action and do some things, who knows? But again, be very wary of numbers on bad football teams. And remember that nobody looks at the other side. Like Jacksonville's still a bad football team. They did a nice job against an even worse football team in week 1, but they didn't want them. Now it's a new regime, new GM, new head coach. Bottom line is, wasn't that good because they haven't been in the building. They didn't want them. Now, again,
that's no guarantee every GM is making the right decision on stuff like that.
No, I'm just saying, though, people need to look at it from the other side as well. So for people saying he's clearly better than so-and-so, insert name, look, I'm just telling you what the Eagles think. If you ask me what I think, I don't know enough about Tank Bigsby. I know he's got a better draft pedigree, so I know how people are, and they're going to lean on that.
He's a hard runner, man. I do like him. I liked the player last year when he was running with the Jags. Now, I didn't watch too much of him, but I do remember the kickoff return he had versus the Eagles, John, last year. Remember that? He ran Nolan Smith over.
That's one of the things, and maybe the Eagles get too bogged down in that kind of stuff because they see something for a very short something, they say, whoa.
Yeah, right.
But look, from the standpoint of kickoffs are a big deal in the NFL now. And by the way, that is my favorite thing about the early NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Kickoff return is back. I mean, it is meaningful. And you can win and lose games not only by your kickoff returns, but your kickoff coverage. It is back. And I love that. And it is now, nobody gave a shit when everybody was kicking touchbacks and throwing it out of the end zone and just, there were 20% return rates. Now you're up over 70%. And teams like Minnesota did it last night. They were so shitty at kickoff coverage that they just started kicking it in the end zone and letting them have it at the 35. Like, that ain't helping you.
Yeah.
But
bad.
if you can't do it, if you can't cover, it's going to have a big impact. And then they won the game on a kickoff return by doing the right thing because of the timing, and Chicago burned their timeouts. And there was 2:02 left when Chicago scored. They only had one timeout. So Chicago wanted to kick the ball out of the end zone. So you have two timeouts. You have the 2-minute warning, and then you have one timeout after the 2-minute warning. Then they would have had about a minute and to go tie the game, legitimate shot, or even win it with that much time. But they brought it out from 7 yards deep, didn't matter where he got to. It was a decent return, but that didn't matter. It was just about wasting the time. Then they had one timeout. You ran it all the way down to like 16 seconds, game over. Kick returns are going to have a big impact. So it makes sense from the Eagles' perspective of they want to get good at that, both ends of it. Kickoff returns and kickoff coverage. And if
that sounds
helps them,
to me. That sounds
yes,
that makes sense.
It's very Eaglesy.
Right.
It's very Eaglesy.
Emerging in the NFL as a more prominent part of the game, and the Eagles want to get way ahead of it, want to spend more than other teams to, get good at it quick and try and win on the margins that way. Is a 5th and a 6th, Rich, for a kick returner still with the setup that they have now?
Well, I don't think it is now. Before, yeah.
Yeah, well, you brought the context last night, John, when you're like, dude, did you see how many trades they make on day 3 of the draft each year? Like they can get 5th and 6th round picks. I'm not worried about that.
And plus, you see it this year already. Everybody's hyped, and you saw it last year. Everybody was hyped about the day 3 picks. Trevor Keegan, could he be a day 1 start? He's in Dallas now after he got waived. Cam Williams, what an upside. He's inactive. Drew Kendall's inactive. Kyle McCord's cutting on the practice squad. Miles Hinton's on injured reserve. APR's cut. They're giving out his number to Zadarius Smith already. That's how quickly they move on in the NFL. Who's here? Smile Munden as a special teams player and Mac McWilliams as a special teams player. From all those day 3 picks, those are the guys contributing. If you can get something meaningful for a 5th, 6th, but package them together. And again, long-term, he'll be in the backup situation if you think about next year, because he's under contract.
Right.
He's got 1 more year after this year. So that factors into it as well. He's very cost effective. And look, maybe he is better. I'm just telling you what they think. Now, if you want to ask me what I think, I got to see him play first. But I'm not going to be enamored by numbers in Jacksonville. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah.
That's not all that meaningful to me. From the standpoint, I'm not going to hold that against him either. It's a bad organization. It's been a bad organization. Hopefully they're doing some right things now. Hopefully they can turn it around. But yeah, I have to see him play first. I'm not going to rely on Twitter scouts from Auburn tape. So, maybe he's an upgrade, but they look when they traded for Kenny Pickett, there was a lot of assumptions that, they don't like Tanner McKee. And they made it very clear that they liked Tanner McKee. Like, maybe wasn't ready, but they made it very clear that long term they like Tanner McKee. And obviously that was borne out and very successful, by the way, because Kenny did a good job as a backup quarterback last year, whether people give him credit for that or not. He did a good job, played very well in that Washington game. Washington won that game with 6 seconds left. Jalen left with 6 minutes after 6 minutes into the game, and Washington needed till 6 seconds left to win that game. He did a very good job overall as a backup quarterback. And then he hurt his ribs and persevered the next week and won that game. Did a very good job as a backup quarterback. But long term, the Eagles wanted to go where they wanted to go with Tanner McKee. They wanted another year. They got it. And now he's the backup quarterback, unfortunately injured, but he's the backup quarterback. Now, so what I'm saying is when they push back on stuff, and they made it very clear, very, very clear, it's not about Will Shipley.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see how much of an impact he makes. I do think he's definitely an improvement for kick returns, if that's explicitly what he's for. I'd like to see how his role kind of evolves on the team, if at all. But I do think he's worth more than just a kick returner. While I do hear you, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm sure they will use him on kick returns. I happen to think he has the ability to impact the team more than just that.
Well,
kick
that's
return.
fine. I have nobody. If you all have your personal evaluations, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I'm just trying to impart what the team thinks and what I think will, unfold over the coming weeks when I get to see him play.
Why did you say you don't really care for his stats in Jacksonville?
Well, because A, it's a very bad team. B, they drafted a kid. So the guys who came in, now again, they're unproven. New GM, new head coach. They didn't want him. He was, he had those numbers. They have access to all the film, to say the least, and he went in a different direction. So it's not like they went, oh, we don't need a backup running back. Obviously, Travis Etienne's a very good player. They're running back one. So he was more in the line for the backup role. But they drafted a kid, and I forget his name. He's got a weird name. Really fast kid. I'd have to look it up. But they went a different direction. So, if you just look at the numbers and say, all right, 766 yards. That's pretty good for a backup running. Obviously, injury
in Jacksonville with a pretty shoddy O-line,
Yeah, but again, they had a chance to keep him.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to gauge because and I don't mean that. I'm not trying to push back on you. I'm just saying you always tell me about how I can't use good or bad teams to judge players. Which I think is very fair.
Well, that's
so I'm trying to wonder. All right, Tank had pretty good production on a really shitty team.
Well,
is he a better player in a better team, or are the stats kind of fake news? I don't know.
Well, that stats are always fake news. Number one. So when I say, because now they're not always fake news if you look at the context and you dive into the context. That's what I'm saying. But again, very few people, and I brought this up about the college level. If things were flipped with Texas, I forget who they played this week. Anybody know? Put it in the chat. But Arch Manning had 5-6 stars. I forget who they played.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Now, if they flipped that and they played that team week one,
San Jose
State. If they played that team week one and then they got to Ohio State week two, the hype coming into that game for Arch Manning would have been insane, and people would have been wondering why. Oh, he threw 5-6 touchdowns, whatever he threw. Why can't he do that against Ohio State? And it's much more pronounced at the college level when you have these tremendous different levels of competition.
Yeah, right.
But in the NFL, it's also, you'll see as you get to the second half of the season when some of these teams start tapping out, and you'll see even the best players, even the guys, the all-pro players, they'll ring up stats against these bad teams, and then you'll get in the muck against a good team, and it'll look pretty shitty, even if you win and persevere like the Eagles often do. But statistically, it won't look great. So you really have to dive deep in those situations. Are they meaningful minutes? A lot of people talk about garbage time in the NBA. There's a lot of garbage time in the NFL. Are they meaningful statistics? Is it a one-score game, or going back and forth? Or you're Josh Allen pulling wins out of your you-know-whats. That's impactful. I still say today, Buffalo did not play well as a whole. So there's a lot of false spreads. Same thing last night, the two night games. Minnesota did not play well, but they pulled it out of their ass at the end of the game against a bad football team. And that everybody's happy. They did not play well. There were a lot of bad signs for J.J. McCarthy. On the other hand, Josh Allen, unbelievable. carried his team to a victory. A team that played very poorly for most of that game overall. But if you win, and if you win because great players make great plays, or you win because you're facing a bad team, whatever it might be. I was looking, let's see, at the PFF rankings. They haven't gotten last night's game. It's too early. So we're talking about 30 teams, which Minnesota and Chicago, neither of them played well. So they're not going to be at the top of the list.
No,
anyway.
we'll talk about that game a little bit once we wrap up Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, but I'm just, so the Eagles were number 9, by the way, top in the top 10. But I just wanted to look. Baltimore was number 4. Buffalo, I'm still looking. Buffalo was 14. Not terrible. I thought they'd be worse. They didn't play well. Their quarterback just was a magician.
He was, man. Josh Allen's a special player.
At the end of the game. And John Harbaugh made a bunch of mistakes. That's one of the things that PFF should do. They should come up with some kind of coaching metric.
I know. I agree with you on that.
But so, the team that played better lost the game. Bottom line. The team that played better last night lost the game. Bottom line. Overall, through the 60 minutes. And not that they played well, but they lost the game. Happens all the time in the NFL. So you got to, as Nick Sirianni would say, it's boring, but you got to pay attention to when you're talking about statistics. If you want to talk about them with any relevancy, you gotta really break them down and see what they mean. And I haven't done that with Tank Bigsby. But what I do know is Jacksonville didn't want him, and that hedges back to long before trading him. He was not, the backup running back this year. Now, again, unproven coach, unproven GM. Maybe they're wrong. But, I'm not going to get too excited about numbers in Jacksonville. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, understandable.
Long-winded way to say it.
John, a couple other things I want to talk about here, and there's 2 things that I think people aren't going to love, but we'll talk about them. 2 of them are elephants in the room, in my estimation. I'll start with the one that's a little bit more tempered, and people won't get as upset about, and then I'll ask the questions that I think people are going to get a little mad at me for, but that's all right. I'll ask them anyway. The first elephant in the room, John, is the Eagles need help on defense. And everybody was hoping that they'd be trading for a corner or an edge rusher, but I think they added Zadarius, so I think you are better at that spot. But, a lot of people in the comments, John, where's cornerback 2? Where's cornerback 2? Where's cornerback 2? Why are we trading for a running back? What do you think of that as they continue to make moves on the offense, really for a team that I don't think needs that much help on the offense? But what do you think of kind of that and all the fans looking for a cornerback 2?
They already made their move at cornerback. Not to say they can't, if things continue to go poorly, they can't shift gears, but they made their move with Ja'Cory and Bennett. Now it was interesting because there's a lot of hype about Mike Hilton coming in. He's a slot corner. And it turns out the Eagles worked out a bunch of guys yesterday, including Quez Watkins, by the way. So again, so they brought in, this is what teams do for people that don't know. During the weeks, not every week, but a lot of weeks, and especially early in the season, you bring in a bunch of guys on the street to build up sort of personnel dossiers on where they are in case of injuries. So, they brought in Mike Hilton. They brought in Quez Watkins. They brought in Jamin Davis, first-round pick in Washington a couple of years ago. Never panned out. Isaiah Foskey, we talked about last week, was going to be coming in. He was a second-round pick in 2023. A couple offensive linemen. KJ Osborne, who had a couple good seasons as a third receiver. They brought in all these guys yesterday to build up sort of those dossiers in case people get injured down the road. And the Hilton one was interesting because he's a slot corner, and you can envision, well, maybe if they like Mike Hilton, maybe if he's as a Darius Smith level, they could bring him in to play the slot because they don't have any confidence in them playing the slot. And then kick Cooper outside, and then you solve the cornerback 2 issue. That even I mulled that over, but if you heard us talking to Nick yesterday, it didn't sound like that was happening. Now, ultimately, and we'll talk about it with Vic today, I'm sure. But from the way Nick Sirianni was talking, it did not sound like that was the plan. And I'll try to pull it up as I'm speaking here about his actual words on Cooper. But so, he talked about his versatility. He can return punts, blah, 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 play inside, outside, play safety. I'm sure he'd be pretty good on offense if we say, hey, let's put him on offense. By the way, a number of people, he played 3 snaps on offense, and a lot of people were losing their minds. He's new. Travis Hunter was victory formation. Settle down. They do that. Last year it was Reed. This year, evidently it's going to be Cooper. But, he does a lot of things really well, which we all know. But then as he continued, he said, I think right now he's one of the best nickels in the NFL with the way he plays these football games, with his physicality, with his ability to match routes, with his ability to use his mind and think of how routes are coming at him. I just think he can do a lot of things there. Again, flexibility to be able to move him around. We'll see what we do, but I do believe that he is one of the better players at his position in the NFL. Now, that sounds to me like he doesn't want to move him. And he is one of the better players at his position in the NFL, arguably the best nickel corner in the NFL. Now, if he goes outside, is he one of the best outside cornerbacks in the NFL? Probably not right away.
Yeah, definitely not.
So, but I've also brought up since the beginning, there's a business part of this as well. We have to get him outside at some point. So maybe you pull the trigger. A lot of ways it can go.
Or is it vice versa, John? Is it the Eagles don't want to put him outside because it's going to cost another $60 million?
Well, that's part of the. That's what makes it so difficult, because I guarantee his agent will say that.
Yeah.
He's trying to limit his earning power. And that's part of the business of football nobody wants to talk about, but exists. So all of that factors into it. But certainly from Nick Sirianni's words, and hey, he's the head coach, so people can make fun of him all they want, and Vic is in charge of the defense, and what Vic says goes, and if Vic wants to move him, he'll move. But those guys are generally on the same page. And you saw Vic defer to Nick Sirianni earlier when he was talking about the starters.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give up anything. So all this, Nick controls the team. So, and his words were pretty definitive.
They got him for sure. All right, Johnny Mac. Now, my next elephant in the room that I don't think people are going to be happy with, but I do have to ask it. Now, I'll be clear. I don't really feel this way, but I got this text last night, and I think it's fair for some to wonder this, especially people who might not be as, who follow the Eagles as closely. But this is the text I got last night, all right? And I'll read it to you verbatim as it was texted to me. I've never seen the Eagles make so many trades at this time. Bad job by Howie in the offseason. He may have won the draft perhaps, but he butchered the management of the roster. And I think where they're right is this is a lot of moves, John, that Howie, I think he's made 6 or 7 moves in the last, 2-3 weeks before the start of the season and into the start of the season. He obviously signs Darius Smith. Now you make a trade for Tank Bigsby. Do you think that's a fair comment? And how do you see how he managed the offseason? Because I will say he is a little bit more reactive right now. He's signing a lot of or trading for players, doing different things right now, trying to plug holes. What do you think of that comment, and what do you think of Howie's offseason as it looks?
I've mentioned this a few times, and I got shit on for it
Yeah,
earlier.
well, that's why I said we're going to get shit on for it.
Far early in the process, and even Cilio brought it up on our pregame show, and I talked about it there. Look, there's two ways you can look at it. First of all, what I talked about, it's easier to make trades now. So you have to also have that in the back of your mind. Young GMs, Howie just did it again. He's done it a couple times with Jacksonville. First-year GM, younger guy, first-year head coach, more willing to move. The new breed of GMs are more willing to trade. So that factors into it.
Yeah, I agree.
The second part is, yes, you can say the 90-man roster was not nearly as deep as we all thought it was, including myself. And actions speak louder than words. Now, the positive from the Eagles standpoint, what one of Howie's great strengths as a GM, he doesn't sit on mistakes. He tries to correct them as quickly as possible. Whether you're talking about Bryce Huff, most teams, and that's why you say, and I speak from conventional wisdom a lot of times with old school GMs, they wouldn't have traded Bryce Huff. They wouldn't have even considered it.
Right.
They would have sat on it, went through the misery for another year, and then moved on. So he's much more proactive. So to me, that's a positive. So again, you're talking about very margin type deals, whether it's John Mechie. I think the Eagles are better than they've ever been at backup receiver in the Nick Sirianni era with Jahan Dotson and John Mechie. You gave up Harrison Bryant. Who cares? No offense, JD. Backup quarterback, which they needed from the standpoint of, unfortunately, Tanner fractured his thumb, and he'll be out for probably another week or two, but should be back by week 4 at the worst. So they went out and got Sam Howell and a 6, and they give up a 5 and a 7. Would you be more comfortable if Jalen Hurts got knocked out with Sam Howell or Kyle McCord or Dorian Thompson-Robinson? I mean,
yeah, right.
I'm not a big Sam Howell guy, but you got better increment, and ultimately he'll be the third string quarterback, and you're much better if the catastrophe happens, which anybody's screwed, but you'll be much better to have him as a third string quarterback. But certainly as a guy who has to come in much more better equipped to play right now than Kyle McCord or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think everybody would agree with that.
I certainly agree. And I agree from the sentiment of I like that he doesn't sit on his hands.
Fred Johnson, you get him for a 7th-round pick. You got your swing tackle back. You've already seen Fred Johnson play 4 or 5 games. 5 games he started last year. 5 games. And the Eagles won all of them. Well, they won every game, but so they persevered. That's all you're looking for with a swing tackle. They moved out. Darren Kennard actually played pretty well. Had to play for Green Bay. Had to play pretty well. They got back a 7th. He wasn't going to make the team, so all right, get an extra pick. They could do more things. Then they give up a 5 and a 6 for Tank Bigsby. And like I said, whether you agree with their thought process or not, and for whatever reason, a lot of Eagles fans don't seem to like Will Shipley. I don't know why. I'm very concerned he got hurt in the first game, but he was pretty damn good before he got hurt.
Look, I was critical of him in the offseason. He looked really good in week 1. I thought he was a great change of pace from Saquon.
Great receiver. I hope
great receiver.
Visions for him. And they get Bigsby to elevate the kickoff return game, which I think is very Eaglesy. It is more important. It is more important. In years past, you didn't even give a shit who the kick returner was because it didn't matter. Now it matters. And I don't know if he can do it, but they think he can do it.
Right.
And as you mentioned, he had a good kick return. Sometimes I think they lean a little bit too much to players. Like one of the reasons they liked Ojulari is that he played well against them. I'd say maybe look at him against some other teams, but because he hasn't been great to this point. But Nick spoke well of him, which I'm surprised. It's going to help us win games or something at some point. Mentioned about him. So no guarantee they'll be right, but I think the mindset behind it makes a lot of sense. So it depends. To your original question, it depends how you look at it. Yes, if your goal is to build up the best 90-man roster, well, their actions speak that they weren't competent in the guys that were going to be in those positions that we just went down. All right, so what? They got better.
Right.
That's go. Now you have more avenues. Again, years ago, 10, we're not even talking about 20, 30 years ago. It's very hard to make these trades. So the assumption, yes, the Eagles have done more than they've ever done, but part of that is just it's easier to do things. And people are in other cities are more willing to do things. So, and that was not always the case in the past. But yeah, I think one of Howie's greatest strengths as a GM is moving on from guys who aren't hitting their evaluation points, shall we say, and I think this is evidence of it. They got better at wide receiver. They got better at backup quarterback. They got better on the backup offensive line. And now they have a guy, they got better at kick returner in theory. And who knows, maybe he can help at running back as well.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, last question on this topic here with
Darius Smith. I didn't bring him up. They got better at edge rusher as well.
Yep, no doubt. John, the one thing Howie does like to do, all right, we had news this weekend that Howie tried a 2 first, a 3, a 5, and others. Now, we don't know exactly what others means. Some say Jordan Davis because, Jerry wanted a run stopper. That's a lot to be willing to trade. Now, I know Micah Parsons is a player that they have well above their demarcation line of guys that they would pay. But that tells me if the right guy is available, they're willing to pay. I'm wondering if they're warming up James Gladstone a little bit, letting them get a couple good trades with Howie. Doesn't think, all right, man, Howie are making good trades. I'm winning. I'm getting draft picks for the guys I don't want. If Trayvon Walker did become available, you got to think Howie's told him, hey, you don't make a move until you call me and I will beat that offer. That's what I think. I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah. No, I know, people love this hot stove mentality of baseball. I think they made their moves at cornerback. That's why I didn't mention Jacory. You should throw him in there. Well, outside cornerback and edge rusher. Now, if those guys fail, then again, it opens up around the trade deadline. But I think they made their move at edge rusher. They tried. They tried for the home run. Sorry, losing my voice, but weren't able to hit it with Micah. They tried other things. Maybe Trayvon Walker was part of that process, but now they've made the move and they're going to see how it works out. And I think the same thing with Jacory Bennett. They made the move. We'll see how things work out. It's interesting to me how quickly people bail on, what has Jacory Bennett done other than maybe get a 50-50 DPI? Maybe it was interference, maybe it wasn't, but yeah, I'm not going to blame it on him. Got here August 5th. He's got upside, played okay in limited snaps with the Raiders. But for some reason, nobody wants to give him a chance. I don't get it. Maybe it turns out to be nothing. Maybe it's not good enough. That's possible. I just don't understand people making that evaluation so quickly. He's the first guy in there when Adoree was getting checked for a concussion. I think they're going to get to him eventually as he continues to play. And remember, very complicated defense. Not as easy as just, say a pass rusher coming in. You can point at Zadarius Smith, who's a veteran player, and would be easier from that perspective anyway. And has done it for a long time at a high level in this league. But, even as a pass rusher in general, you can point at them and say, go get the quarterback. And you might want to do some more things, especially Vic with dropping guys and things like that. And you'll work up to that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can just say, go get the quarterback. It's very simple. So it's a lot harder, especially in this defense, to jump on the field as a corner. And you saw it last year with Cooper, and he made a big deal about missing 20 days of camp. Now that's a sliding scale as well, because this year they wanted to get to Drew, and despite some injuries, they got to Drew Makuba because they wanted him on the field. Last year they had Avonte Maddox, which people could say, well, but he was a veteran player who knew how to play.
Right.
Similar to, sound familiar? That's Adoree Jackson.
Right.
Veteran player who knows how to play. Eventually, they're going to get to the guy with upside.
We'll see how it shakes out. Johnny Mac, great stuff there. The Eagles have acquired Tank Bigsby. Let's see what he can do, everybody. I do look, if the kick returns become a thing, good. Get good at it.
Oh, they're a thing, man. They're already a thing.
I know they're a thing. So that's a good thing for the Eagles. John, we'll get to some super chats real quick here to start the show. And then we will get into some of the guys that they brought in yesterday. And now we are in prep mode, everybody. It's Tuesday. We'll talk briefly about that Monday night game last night. And then we'll kind of start to get ready for the Super Bowl rematch that will be the Eagles versus the Chiefs on 4/25 this Sunday in Kansas City at Arrowhead Field. All right, Dirty Air checks in. What's up, Dirty Air? Ojulari will help us win games when he's on a team we are playing against.
Well, the reason he's here is because he played pretty well against the Eagles. So, but I did find it interesting that Nick spoke so highly. No, I never expect Nick to throw people under the bus, but I did find it interesting that he brought him up and used that phrasing, because in theory now he doesn't even have a place on the defense with Za'Darius coming in, because now you have Za'Darius Smith, you have Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and Josh Uche, who actually played damn well in his limited. I think he played 19 snaps, but he played damn well. You're not going to use 5. Now you can talk about injuries and that kind of stuff, and maybe helps you down the road from that standpoint, but I don't even see the role for him right now, barring injuries.
Me neither. Christopher Darker checks in. What's up, Christopher? We got spoiled by Coop and Q. Just expect people to be all pros first snap.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And who's he talking about?
They're Cooper and Quinyon.
Yeah, no, but I mean, who's he talking about that we're now expecting to be all pro first snap?
Well, I think everybody. Ja'Cory Bennett. I don't know. I can't speak for him. I assume that's what he's talking about. But a lot of people have given up on Ja'Cory Bennett. I don't get it. Yeah, most people aren't going to step on the field and perform right away like Cooper and Q. So, yeah, there's a little bit of that natural spoiled nature to that you see it once and you expect it again. They're the exception to the rule, not the rule. And that's one of the things I agreed with Howie when people called cornerback a weakness overall for the Eagles. I'm like, they got 2 of the best corners in football. Last year they had 3. So again, embarrassment of riches. You saw, if people watch some football around the NFL, most teams don't have 2 really good corners. Never mind 3.
Yeah, no. That's
so yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to replace Darius Slay.
No, I know you're not, but I don't really agree with Christopher Darker, who says I mean, to some extent you get spoiled by good first round picks, but I don't think it's egregious to say Adoree Jackson doesn't look good enough. I mean, if you think he does, and I mean, then by
I thought he was talking more about Ja'Cory.
Yeah, I think that may be what he is talking about, where we expect him to be great, but they haven't put him on the field, so
I'm just taking it the way I'm taking it. Obviously, you took it in a different way. because I was talking about Jakorian. I assumed he was talking about Jakorian. Because you just mentioned it when you're saying people are upset they didn't go get a cornerback too. They didn't go get some help. I'm like, well, they already got a potential corner. That was their answer to it. So that's how I took the comment. For Adoree, I just compared him to outside versus inside. He's the Avonte Maddox of this year. Like he's the placeholder to get to the young guy with upside. And by no means am I comparing Jakorian Bennett to Cooper DeJean. Just I'm comparing the sentiment of, well, Jakorian's going to be the starter at some point. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you if he's going to succeed. I can't tell you if he's going to fail, but he's going to get an opportunity. And I think Adoree is just the placeholder.
I agree there. We'll see if Bennett can ramp up. I mean, my question on Bennett isn't about really the future. I'm not trying to put a ceiling on the player, but we need a guy in 2025. That's what we need, and I don't know if Jakorian is going to be that or is ready to be that, but we will see. Appreciate the super chat, though, Christopher. Appreciate the chat from Dirty Air. Member for 12 months. Thank you, brother. That's a full year. So appreciate you. Appreciate everybody for being here today. We already got a big crowd in here. Hit that like button. Drop your comments down below. Subscribe to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. If you're new here, we cover the Philadelphia Eagles morning, noon, and night. And when you have breaking news, we go live as quick as we possibly can, like we did last night with the Tank Bigsby trade. So appreciate everybody. Hit that like. John, let's get into practice yesterday and then what we have coming up today. I know you mentioned it's coordinator day today. So you'll go down and speak with, I presume, Patullo and Fangio, right? You get them on the same day now.
And Michael Clay.
So you get all three of them today. Going back to yesterday, John, they were back on the practice field. Nick Sirianni spoke yesterday. Just any takeaways that you had from yesterday's practice?
Yeah, well, no practice. We just talked to Nick. They have a lift on Monday, the players, but no practice or anything. They'll get back on the practice field normal Sunday week on Wednesday, and they'll practice Thursday, Friday, walk through Saturday. But because of the Thursday game, Nick usually talks after the game, and then obviously did after the game, literally, but he usually talks the next day as well. They pushed that back to Monday because of the unique circumstance. But as far as what he talked about, I mentioned some of it. The Aziz thing popped out to me. I didn't understand that. I just brought up Michael Clay. Gave a lot of love to Michael Clay again for the special teams work. They were very concerned about Kevontae Turpin, who might be the best punt returner, kick returner, does both in football, and they did a really good job. Parts of that, a lot of that had to do with Jake Elliott, and Braden Mann had a phenomenal game as a punter. Nobody talks about, but
John, it feels like every game he's got a damn good game. He's a good punter, man.
Yeah.
Where did we get him from again?
So on the street, he was with the Jets, and then who knows? That's a position where some guys, when they get he's pretty good with the Jets, and then it went bad. And then it took him a while to get that second chance. And when he got it, he's really excelled with it. Both kickers and punters, a lot of mental head games there. If you start to get a few bad things, things can go in a negative direction. But he's been great, especially when you compare Darren Cepas, the struggle. He's a perfect example of things going negative. Never recovered from the Super Bowl 57. And he shouldn't have been kicking in that game because he was hurt, and they sort of wanted to be loyal and bring him back. And he made that bad punt that the Chiefs were able to return inside, I believe, the 10. So anyway, very good job by special teams. And he keeps bringing that up. A lot of the talk, and you'll hear it today as well, as AJ and Devontae not getting targets. And he went on a long soliloquy. I actually asked him that question. He, of course, went on the longest soliloquy, so I got more shit because he took up 15 minutes of his 30 minutes answering that question. which is a lot of the stuff you heard before. But it is interesting. I mean, the bottom line is A.J. Brown, and he talked about his mental toughness, and he talked about keeping his head in the game and making the big play late. That's a career low for A.J. Brown in targets in any game in his career, going back to Tennessee when he wasn't even a superstar at that point. He was very good from day one, and obviously he was on a very run-heavy team there as well with Derrick Henry, but that's a career low for him. And I think people get lost that, okay, this has happened in the past, and Nick always brings up 2022 in Detroit with Devontae, who didn't get a reception, and the next week he went off. Always defaults to that. But they both didn't get the football. Devontae only had like 3 catches for 15 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
They both didn't get the football. So it was a lot of underneath stuff. It was a lot of the football never went down the field. The only passing 10 yards or more was the big Jahan Dotson gash, which was a big play as well. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. I think it's something to put a check mark to. Because I told you, coming out of the game, I thought Jalen Hurts played very well. I think that's, if you watch the film, that's validated by the film. If you look at PFF, I think they graded him as the 4th or 5th best quarterback in week 1 going into last night. And certainly those two aren't going to beat him. So it all checked out, but I mean, that's kind of weird, not throwing the football down the field at all, especially when you have the difference makers the Eagles have. So I'm sure Kevin Patullo will be asked that today ad nauseum.
Do you think the Dallas Cowboys did a pretty good job on defense?
I do. Yeah, I thought they would.
You always tell me, John, you're like, hey, there is another team out there. There is another team out there trying to do good as well. Like, I thought the Cowboys played pretty good defense, specifically on the receivers, and then they obviously mitigated Saquon the way they did. Jalen was the difference maker with the legs in the game, clearly. I thought Dallas.
Well, that's the thing. If I'm looking at from a Dallas perspective, I think they played very well to the things you pointed at, but they were so poor discipline-wise. Yeah, I say the same thing with last night. Early in the game, and Caleb Williams is a different cat when he's running the ball. They could not tackle that guy. And part of that is, preseason. Nobody plays in preseason, yada, yada, yada. So Nick talked about missed tackles, drop passes. You're going to see elevated levels of those in every game, and you have. He's completely correct. So they did a really poor job, the Cowboys, with their discipline on the pass rush. I thought they had a good pass rush, but it wasn't disciplined. And Jalen Hurts really took advantage of it. And that's something that'll probably come, and they'll correct it, but it cost them the game. I'll tell you that. It cost them the game. But it's weird. Same thing with Kevin Patullo. You say, all right, first game as an offensive coordinator. Touchdown, field goal. That's pretty freaking good. Same thing for Matt Eberflus. Well, he gave up touchdown, field goal. That's not good. But then they settled down. The Cowboys defense and the Eagles offense started to stutter.
I mean, let's be real. The game went the same in a similar way for both teams.
Yeah.
41 of 44 points in the game were scored in the first half. There was only a field goal in the second half. That's it. No offense has scored a touchdown in the second half. So both defenses had a good second half and not a great first half.
Yeah. So, but I've said Eberflus is going to be, they're going to be better defensively because he's a good coordinator. I don't think he's a good head coach, but I think he's a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job. I mean, without Michael Parsons, I will give them credit. I thought that defense looked a little better than expected coming into the game. So that was pretty good. That was a pretty good matchup there. John, but the Chiefs coming up, man, I'm excited for that game. That should be a good one. The Chiefs, I don't know how good they're going to be. I mean, they looked like they were a lesser team. Now, they were without Xavier Worthy with that play early in the game where he was knocked out by Travis Kelce. I do not think he's going to go This week, we'll kind of see about that, but that's an exciting matchup for week 2 for the Birds. Going to Arrowhead, a Super Bowl rematch, Johnny Mac, a nice little, I don't know if you want to call it a rivalry, but a nice little, back and forth going between these two teams right now for the last couple of years. And I'm looking forward to the matchup this weekend. Just your early thoughts on that game. We'll dive more into it as the week goes on.
Yeah, I don't like where Kansas City's going at all. Now, part of it's injury wise. They lost, obviously, one of their receivers is suspended because he's a moron. But then you lose Worthy, so you lose all of your speed. They still have Ty Thornton, who's really fast, but he's just not a good receiver. Josh Simmons, I think there was a lot of hype about him coming in. He was not great. Ultimately, their tackles are still a disaster area. Jawan Taylor's a penalty waiting to happen. I just don't like what's going on with that team at all. And again, maybe the Eagles broke me on this team. I think it's clearly a descending team. And I look at this game as a very winnable game on the road for the Eagles. They're just better. And you have to worry about Chris Jones defensively, but you saw what they were able to do last year. And we'll see how Spagnuolo handles it, because his game plan in the Super Bowl, everybody talks about it like people want to copy it. It's one of the worst game plans I've ever seen. Did nothing. I don't get that. The Eagles destroyed them.
Well, what's his name this weekend had a better game plan? Eberflus.
Oh, yeah. But I just don't get it. Well, other than the reputation. But why would people want to copy that? So I don't get that from that perspective. And I'm sure they'll play better than they played in the Super Bowl. They have to. But I think the Eagles are just a significantly better team at this point.
Yeah, me too, John. Me too. I don't know what they're like, stripping Patrick Mahomes of like every piece of talent around him. Yeah. I'm like, dude,
and by the way, he still made some of magical plays, all platform plays. So you do have to be considerate. I mean, he's still a great quarterback, but yeah, it doesn't matter how great you are. You need a supporting cast. Nick talks about that all the time when people shit on Jalen Hurts. Nobody has ever won a Super Bowl with a bad supporting cast. Nobody in the history of the game. So you want to talk about Mahomes, Montana, Brady, they all had good supporting cast. And right now, his supporting cast doesn't look good enough. Maybe they get healthier. Maybe Bryce returns, maybe Worthy returns, and maybe they'll be better at the end of the season, which is more important than what they did last year when they got progressively worse and kept winning those close games. Maybe they're playing better and they're more relevant later in the season, but right now it looks like it's going to be a slog for them, at least until they get some of those players back.
Yep, no doubt. Let's get to a couple super chats here, and then I want to get the update on Landon Dickerson and Jalen Carter. We'll get those after these super chats. Brandon Snyder, what's up, brother? Thank you, man. $10 super chat here. Missed you two studs. Look at that, Johnny Mac. Is showing us some love to start the super chat. Appreciate you, brother. I hope all is well with both of you. Chiefs not having Worthy this weekend is a huge benefit for us, so we need to make sure the run game doesn't get going with Pacheco. Yeah, it's true. It's a good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the one thing about Pacheco is I like Pacheco as well too, but he's not, he's not explosive. Compared to, Derrick Henry said nobody is. Saquon, nobody's explosive like those two. But my point is, I don't think you have to be worried about it. Unless you're just totally incompetent stopping the run, which is not going to be big. It's never going to be Vic Fangio, because if he senses he's struggling stopping the run on a given day, he's just going to add people to the front. He's going to he did it last week when they struggled early. He started putting Campbell down, turning it into a 5-man front. That's what he does. He'll put 6 up there if he needs to. So I can't worry too much about that. The only running backs I worry about, you saw a kid last night who I love, Jordan Mason, got to play in San Francisco. I thought that was one of the best pickups for Minnesota in the offseason. That dude's got tremendous vision, tremendous, and he's a tough runner. He's going to break tackles. He's going to get runs after contact, yards after contact, but he's not that explosive. So it's like, all right, he's getting 10, 15 yards. You never want to gouge, but he's not getting 80 like Saquon. Right. He's not getting 50 like Derrick Henry. So yeah, they're a pain to deal with, but if you're leaning on that, yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah, agreed. Brandon, thanks for the super chat, brother. Christopher Darker, $10 super chat. Thank you guys for the super chats today. Darker says, do you think Fangio dissects the defense and tells them where to attack? Dallas has weak linebackers, so short passes to the tight ends and quarterback scrambles.
No,
I don't think Fangio is helping the offense.
No, not at all. Not at all. To the point, I get why fans ask these questions. Vic has been very honest. Like, they don't even communicate. They even scripted practices. Vic's like,
they might like to have lunch together, Darker. They do nothing together.
Yeah. Vic. Interestingly, when Vic, which I think a lot of people don't know, now this is interesting. When Vic was here as a consultant, and he was only here as a consultant, that was misreported for a very short time. When the playoffs started, basically,
right, a couple weeks late in the year.
Yeah. He's a friend of the program, as they call it, but he was not here formally until late. And he was helping the offense. He was not helping the defense. He was helping the offense. And at that time, I think it was Marcus Brady before they brought him on, was helping. He was the offensive guy helping the defense. I thought it was a very innovative way to do it for the Eagles, to bring in an offensive guy who could help the defense and a defensive guy who can help the offense. But I thought it was innovative at that time, and I still think it was innovative. But yeah, he does not do that for the offense. He's got a tough enough job. He's got to get his own guys prepared.
Yeah, Dark, appreciate the super chat. Thank you, brother. Thanks, everybody. Pump, I'll get to your super chat in a minute. I got to get to these updates here before we get to Chris Franklin. John, let's talk about Jalen Carter and Landon Dickerson. Those are the two main updates right now. We'll start with Jalen Carter. Expected to get news today, John. We did not, and I think you're right. I think it's because of that Monday night game. They don't like clouding those things. What are your expectations on Jalen Carter? Do you expect to hear something today? I'm kind of the belief, John, nothing's going to happen, but I know people think that something might. Where are you on Jalen Carter and the updates on him, and then kind of the timeline for expectations on that?
Yeah, I think he's not going to get suspended now, and I give a hat tip to Mike Florio for this. So
yeah, so
give Mike credit. Typically when they suspend people, it's going to be on a Monday, and the reason why is logistically because everybody appeals and they want to get the appeal through and make sure the suspension is good for the weekend. So it's an indication that he will not be suspended. So that's good news for Eagles fan. He will be fined. I mean, there's no question he's going to be fined, and probably a somewhat significant fine, probably a game check or something of that nature. But just remember, he got paid last week. So people say it was like a suspension. Well, it wasn't like a suspension from a business standpoint. He got paid even though he didn't play. So my guess is they'll probably take away that game check. But for the fans' purposes, all they want to know is he going to be on the field. I think he's going to be on the field now. And then, Nick got asked again about will there be any team discipline? My guess is there won't be. If they sit him for a series or two, all right, maybe possible, but I think that is just a waste of complete time. I mean,
I'll say this: anybody thinks that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to willingly sit Jalen Carter on the bench, I highly, highly doubt that.
Well, yeah, wouldn't totally surprise me if he sat for a series, but I mean that's a complete PR move.
I know, and it's so collegey. That's what
it is very collegey.
It's not, it's so collegey. They're not going to sit Jalen Carter down. Now, I do think they got to get out ahead of with less veterans on the team. That you do want to make sure that the young players are maturing and understanding the moment. So we will see what ends up happening with that. Johnny Mac, good stuff there on Jalen Carter. I assume we'll get that news today, or just at least clarity. I don't think anything's going to happen, but I think it will at least come out. Jalen Carter is not getting suspended, and we'll know for certain on what's happening with him. John, next piece of business here, Landon Dickerson. Obviously, in my estimation, that's more concerning, for the long term than Jalen Carter is right now. What's the update on Landon? Do you have it? And when do you expect to know more if you don't have it yet?
No, Wednesday. Yeah, the Nick Sirianni doesn't give up any. But I will say, and this goes for Will Shipley as well. When injuries like Ben Van Sumeren, who's out for the season, when you have significant injuries, they will ultimately come out, usually from Schefter or Rapid, because it's agents giving them the information.
And they come out more quickly, right?
Yeah, because they're done for the season. And when it's more day to day, week to week, those injuries are not going to come out. Nick does not talk about injuries. That's his policy now. You can waste time and ask him questions about them, as some people do, but he's been very consistent about that now. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's that big of a competitive advantage, but until the injury report, the first practice report of the week, and that comes out Wednesday, where everybody has to have a designation, and obviously you'll learn if they're practicing or they're limited. And then by Friday, you have to have the game designations. So, but the positive news is there's not definitive news on Landon Dickerson and Will Shipley. That tells me it is either day to day or week to week for both. And by that, I mean, they might miss a game. They might miss part of practice this week. In the case of Landon, of the two, I think Will is more likely to miss the game, but that's just pure speculation, and has more to do with Landon will play through anything if you let him, basically. That's all that has to do with.
And they got to kind of protect that player from himself a little bit, you think, John?
I think so, but it's the NFL. Everybody's hurt. Yeah. A lot of hamstrings, by the way.
I know, tons. It feels like those are just things that aren't going away, those hamstrings. But all right,
well, that's part of the preseason stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of the negative of the preseason, because all of a sudden you don't have any ramp up here. And then saw Cashman get hurt last night. He's chasing Caleb Williams around going full bore, and he pulled up with a hamstring. Now he's probably going to miss 3 to 5 weeks. George Kittle, 3 to 5 weeks. Those things are nasty.
If Landon is not able to go, you're thinking Brett Toth. That's who it's going to be.
Yeah. If it's short-term absence, If it's long-term absence, like I said, they would consider moving Tyler Steen, but not for the short term.
What do you think of how Tyler Steen played in that week 1 game?
He was okay. I didn't see all that negative. I didn't see a ton great. I thought the Eagles weren't as good as they typically are in pass protection. I will say that. And that's his, he tends to be better as a run blocker before this season. Now, PFF gave him as a higher grade as a pass blocker. So I thought that was a positive, because that's been sort of his Achilles heel. On the other hand, they gave Jordan a great run blocking grade and a poor pass protection, at least poor for him. Jordan Mailata. But overall, the Eagles gave up a lot of pressures, man. A lot of pressures, more than you would expect. And Landon played poorly because he's hurt. That's another thing. It's like he's not playing like himself.
Right.
So another reason why I would consider, maybe taking a break, but he's such a good player, their assumption is, well, if we have him out there at all, he's going to be better than the alternative. And that's probably true, but he did not play well, especially as a pass blocker. And that's probably because his back is hurt, would be my guess.
We'll see what they end up doing there, Johnny Mac. John, good stuff as they get ready for this game, week 2, and already some attrition in the NFL. That's always a big part of the league, and we'll have to keep our eye on that. John, just real quick comments on the game last night I wanted to get to. Just your thought. I know we've talked a lot about that NFC North, and the Bears, I thought for a second, I'm like, hey, maybe they are going to be better. Maybe I was on to something, and then they didn't look so hot that second half. What'd you make of the game last night between the Vikings and the Bears, the J.J. McCarthy Bowl and the Ben Johnson Bowl?
Yeah, well, same thing. Tale of two halves. I mean, Minnesota looked awful. I mean, the first half, J.J. McCarthy looked completely lost to the point you're like, I mean, that team could have had Sam Darnold. They could have ran it back. They could have said, all right, he's too expensive. We'll elevate Daniel Jones, who played the great first game for Indy. They could have had Aaron Rodgers, who had 4 touchdowns. And wanted to play with them. And they said, nope, we want J.J. McCarthy. And I'm watching that game, and I'm like, woof, this is, Kevin O'Connell's reputation is going to take a hit. That was his decision. And I overall, and I'll be interested to see the grades. Overall, he did not play well. People are going to say, oh, and I've already gotten it because I tweeted a couple things about how
I agree.
poor he looked. He did not play well, and he's got a long way to go. And I don't think that team's going to be relevant this year because he's just not good enough. Chicago, boy, Caleb Williams, such an interesting player. I mean, that dude, you can see why he's the number 1 overall pick. I mean, he's making plays that few people can make early in that game with his legs, scrambling. They could not tackle him. He was dead to rights a couple times. He got out of it. Amazing physical talent. But as you get in the game, and Brian Flores, very tough defensive coordinator to deal with, you're going to get a lot of disguise, a lot of different looks. Once he picked up the pressure in the second half, Williams looked lost again. Boy, processing is such a big part of it. Obviously he's got the physical talent, and he's already better because Ben Johnson's there. But he's got a long way to go. He started, I think, 10 of 10, and then all of a sudden the pressure ramped up and he became inaccurate again, missed a bunch of throws. So he's going to be incrementally better, but will he ever live up to the hype of the first round pick? Well, he already has from an athleticism standpoint, but from playing the position, he's got a long way to go. Way to go.
No, he does for sure. No doubt about it. Johnny Mac, good stuff, brother. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. We got a great crowd in here this morning. Let's go to a super chat before we get to our main man. Chris Franklin is going to join us. He was I think he slept in yesterday. He had a long week of football. He had a little football hangover. No problem for our man, Chris. Brian Pump says, all these pundits telling Pumper that Jalen had a magical performance, but it cannot be as simple as play zone defense, and he forgets he has wide receivers. No, sir.
Yeah, I can't
run for first downs every drive.
I can't figure Pumper out. Half of the time he's a unabashed Eagles fan with certain players. He's got the full green tint on. He's got the green Kool-Aid. And then, he doesn't like Jalen. So I can't figure him out. But, well, look, you want the passing game to be better. It feels like we have this question every week. But he's the reason they won that game. I think the main reason with what he was able to do, extending plays, extending drives, third downs. I thought overall he made good decisions. It was a good decision-making game. But, yeah, I mean, that's always going to stick out to people when AJ and Devontae basically aren't involved. So I guess it depends who you want to blame it on. Most people, I guess, will blame it on Kevin because that's easier. Some will blame it on Jalen. But overall, I thought he played a good game, an effective game, but certainly better with his legs than through the air. But decision-making, I think, was very good.
Good stuff there, Pump. Appreciate the super chat. One more chat here. Fredo Vic, member for 8 months. Thank you, Fredo. Dallas or Kelsey this week? Who's having the bigger game?
Well, Dallas, I don't even know if you never who cares, I would say. Can I say who cares? But no, I want I mean, you never think of the Eagles as a high volume passing team, which I say constantly. So I'm hesitant to ever say anything when it comes to the passing game with the Eagles, and I know people are obsessed with fantasy numbers and all that kind of stuff. Jalen talked about it. Nick talked about it. For this team, it's about efficiency. But I also think because of what happened in week 1 that they'll be more cognizant of getting AJ and Devontae involved, which means probably less for Dallas. So my overalls would be who cares, and Kelsey got hurt, right? I don't know where he is. I haven't looked, so he might, if he's not playing, then I'm going to go with Dallas. But I haven't seen where he is yet this week because nobody's on the practice field yet.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll get the update on that tomorrow. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Good stuff, Fredo. Thank you, brother. Pumper, Darker, Snyder, Darker, and Dirty Air. Thank you guys all for the super chats today. Appreciate everybody for being here. Hit that like button. All right, getting ready for week 2 in the NFL. Goes quick, everybody. I'm telling you, you better enjoy the season because we're already going into week 2 here. Week 1 happened quick, and we roll along into week 2. Frank from Philly becomes a member. Frank, thanks for becoming a member, brother. I appreciate it, man. I think it's Frank who just said it's his birthday. So happy birthday to Frank from Philly, and also happy birthday to Fly Eagles Fly, who was in here yesterday and said, Zander, I love you, but I'm going to sleep in tomorrow on my birthday, and I'll miss your show. I'll watch the replay. And I said, all right, I'll mention you on the show. So happy birthday to Fly Eagles Fly. Hope she has a great day as well. Appreciate all of you guys for being here. Let's go to our main man, Chris Franklin, set to join us here on Birds 365. He joins us right now. Chris, welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show, man. How you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing well. First off, happy birthday to all those guys. And second off, I was on me from yesterday. I apologize. I got to stand up in front of it. I got to take accountability.
Accountability, yeah.
Nick Sirianni on it. Chris, not a worry in the world, brother. No
as long as you don't spit on me, I'm good. I'm good, Chris.
No, say that. Spit through zone.
I get Travis Kelce actually hurt Xavier Worthy, so I guess Travis Kelce is okay. He just hurt one of his teammates, but anyway, just wanted to clarify that. We'll get to the Chiefs in a little bit. When it comes to Jalen Carter, since we started there, it looks like he's not going to get suspended. Certainly will face a pretty significant fine. You think the Eagles have to do anything in-house, Chris, or is it just like, we got one of our best players, let's let him go?
No, I think they tacked on their own personal fine, I think internally, and they figured like it's going to be a fine when it comes down to the league punishment, because when you look at it, it essentially he was suspended for the first week of the game because he didn't play a snap. So
yeah,
even though he got that game check, though, I think both.
Yeah, he got the game check, so they got to take the game check away. But yeah, that's how I think it's going to happen. But you're right; it's served as a de facto suspension. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think we'll be behind that at least somewhat quickly until the next incident. Hopefully, he learns from it, and there isn't a next incident. But defense as a whole started out struggling a little bit. I think, Vic sort of made that little tweak, putting Campbell down, turning the 4-man fronts into 5-man fronts, and they started to get better. What'd you think of their performance as a whole?
I thought overall, if I had to give a grade, I think it was a C-ish, depending on it, because mainly it was the second, the CB2 part. It was Adoree Jackson and Ja'Cory Bennett. Then you threw in Cooper for a couple plays, but then you had to go back to Jackson and Bennett. It just, to me, it highlighted the issues that this team had, and then also to sustain pass rush. You had times where you had Jalen Hunt really going around the edge and almost causing fumbles and strikes. You had Nolan Smith getting there, and he had Jordan Davis who had Dak in the grass, but they fell off. Like, they were getting hurries and pressure, but we all know why hurries were invented when it came to Mike Mamula, because he got so close but never got sacks. They had to do something. So they needed more hits, they needed more sacks in terms of that. So I think it gets better. I think it's overall week one stuff. I think the addition of Darius Smith helps out with that as well too.
Yeah, they got it. They got a sack guy now. Darius is now he's 33, but he played pretty well last year, at least from the standpoint of piling up sacks. I mean, this is a guy who knows how to get home. Does he walk into the NovaCare complex? He's already done that, but he'll be on the practice field Wednesday. Is he the best pass rusher on this team, Chris Franklin? Edge rusher. I don't want to bring in Jalen Carter into the conversation. Just on the edge.
Zach Vaughn too. I thought I was going to throw Zach Vaughn just from the middle too. Sad, but off the edge, you could probably make a compelling case that he is. Because I'm looking, when you think about Nolan, he still has some stuff. Nolan and Jalen are still young. They still have stuff that need to be refined. Uche, he's all right too. And if I'm Darius Smith, I'm walking by just looking to give a slide look at Azeez Ojulari and just going, "What's up, buddy?" And walking by and going to the locker room, which we all know. If you had to take your pick,
that Nick Sirianni doesn't know. That guy's going to win us football games, Chris Franklin. That's what he said. I don't know how. How's he getting on the field?
We may see the phantom injury where he's put on IR for a little bit, and then if one of those guys get hurt, oh wow, yeah, he's doing better now. But and that's the thing, you can't find a spot for him to play on special teams because he's not really a true core special teams guy. Smith, you didn't bring him in if anything, if there's any chance, I think that Ojulari plays this week a little bit more so you can ramp up Smith to make sure he's in real true football shape and ready to go. That's the only thing I can say. Like, you wait for him to ramp up and maybe Ojulari gets a snap here or there, but I feel an injury coming up.
The dreaded high ankle sprain that happens in practice. Yeah, I could see that happening. Well, they got to pay him that $3.5 million or whatever it is. So
yeah,
it would make some sense. Latest move from I want it from two perspectives, Chris. Tank Bigsby is here. Eagles give up a 5th and 6th rounder. They evidently think he's got upside as a kick returner, which are a bigger deal now. I mean, it's like 70%. I think that was the best thing about week 1 in the NFL, Chris. Kick returns are back, and they're exciting, and I think it makes the game better, and it's more relevant. So I applaud the Eagles for trying to improve in that particular area. But this is like, how many trades in August? 6, now September. August, September, 6 or 7, whatever it is. If you go back to Ja'Cory and Bennett, what does that say about the original 90-man roster? And are you happy that Howie's, hey, you know what? All right, maybe that wasn't great, but I'm trying to improve, uncovering every rock I can.
I'm sorry, the second one on that. I think it's a thing of, okay, we made some mistakes here or there, and we have the draft picks. You're not going to use them all next year, no matter what. So you might as well try to fill out spots that you still need. You still have weaknesses at, and you still think are areas that you can upgrade at. So you try to trade for players that you think is going to happen before it gets more expensive, right before the trade deadline, when everybody knows, like, if you're out, they're going to try to set themselves up for next year too. So I got no problem with them doing that, but I think it shows that maybe there's more confidence in certain positions than what warranted and what we've seen so far through preseason and first week of training camp. After Tank Bigsby, I know. Listen, I know I'll start with the kick return part first. Yeah, it's very important. The Eagles finished, if you want to say, like 21st, 22nd after week one. Their average thing was like 27.7 yard line, what have you. And the best was 31 because he had some real touchdowns and long returns, what have you. It's important too because I remember the NFL during one of the briefings last year, like it was like 1.7. It increases scoring. So the fact that if you took a normal Eagles drive, it goes 60, 70 yards, what have you. That can go to that leads to at least a field goal, put you in field goal range, or having instead of having to worry about okay, we're punt formation and we're going forward, we're forcing to give the other team better field position. Bigsby is legit. I wouldn't put him as Devin Hester, but I think he's a good. He does better. I think with what they do with that, he gets one hole quick. And I think running backs. That's why you see Shipley back there, and that's why I saw Gainwell the previous year. Running backs, that's perfect. The new kickoff hole is perfect for them because they have that patience. They can see hole quickly, put one foot in and drive it back and drive it up the field. I think that's what Bigsby does well in that part of the game. And it should help out increase the scoring, even if it's for a field goal, even those close games, because I don't think the Eagles are going to blow out as many teams as they did last year with that schedule. So every little bit you can do in field position and scoring helps, and I think he'll help with that. I still think there's more to this. I'm worried about Will Shipley. I know you say he's still like he's not there to replace him. The rib injury, not having him there, or something.
Well, I'm worried about the durability with Will. And, he got hurt pretty early. Who knows? He might have to miss a game or two. I'm worried about that part. But boy, he's a good receiver, Chris. I don't know if they're going to utilize that. They're not. They're not a high volume passing team to begin with. They don't throw the running backs that often. So I don't know how helpful that's going to be, but boy, man, if he were on a different team that dumped the ball off to their backs, he'd be one of those guys that catches 60, 70, 80 balls. But I don't know if that works here.
He's definitely the perfect Carolina Panthers type guy. Like, because normally when you see the blitz, okay, Bryce is going to start scrambling around. I don't know what to do. Just hawk it out to over there to Shipley. He runs that way too. Perfect for them. But even when it's like here, especially with the way if the Cowboys set out the blueprint how to defend the Eagles, especially if you're going to get pressure up front, you play you too deep and you need to get the ball quickly. And you do that in the intermediate game. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more. Like that's like we saw a little bit with Gabe Barkley getting a few throws that way, and even Shipley too. I think on that front, I wouldn't be surprised to see an uptick as compared to last year. It's not a running back centric passing game to begin with, but I think there's a little uptick. We'll see as the season goes on, maybe a little uptick in the running back percent.
It's going to be interesting, Chris. I think he could be here for more than just kick returns, but I understand that they like Will Shipley, but we'll see how they end up using Tank Bigsby. How big is the acquisition of Zadarius Smith? I know John asked you if he's the best one, but does he do enough for that defense for you to feel good about that edge rushing position now? I mean, I like Zadarius, 33 though, so you're kind of at that age where you have to see how he manages it. What'd you think of the addition of Zadarius Smith?
I think it upgrades it a lot because I think that room was really young to begin with, and to have him in there when you lost Brady Graham, I know he could float in the building whenever he wants to help out those guys there. We saw him on the sideline on Thursday night, but to have a guy still playing as well in those meeting rooms, showing the counters what has worked for him, I think it's still big because these guys are still young, learning. They're still very young, and with his performance by itself, he's gotten production. That's the key thing you mentioned earlier when you talked about hurries they're nice. They speed up the clock inside the quarterback's head to get the ball out of his hand. But you need you need a closer. You need a finisher to hit some that to affect the quarterback. Because that's when you really start doing hits and sacks. You start really getting in their minds like quarterbacks running get hit. Where's the flag? You see him looking out. What are you going to do? You need stuff like guys like that to affect the game that way. And you just didn't see as much of it in the week one and prolonged in the preseason too. So yeah, I think that it was a necessary acquisition. That's a necessary signing. I like it. It's a matter of can he have the right impact and do better than he did in Detroit. I know he had 9.5 sacks last year, but I want to see him continue that. And I think he will be that as part of this rotation. If Jalen Carter's on the field with all the other guys.
Yeah, right. I think they're all going to get better once Carter comes back, obviously.
Yeah, I think Zadarius might help a lot, at least early. Then he tends to wear down a little bit at this age, but he can still get home, and I think people are going to be excited, especially when he gets on the field for the first time, because he's going to look different than what's here right now. So I think that's going to be a very positive move. I feel like we always have this question, Chris, but we got to get into it. And Nick gave a 15-minute answer that I got shit for yesterday, but AJ didn't get the ball. Devontae didn't get the ball. Yet I came out of that game saying Jalen Hurts played very, very well. Do we just have to accept that the Eagles are a very unique, unconventional team?
I'm from the school of if you move the ball forward, it's a positive thing. And then you can't become one dimensional. And I don't think they were. I think they traded concerted effort in order to try to get the ball into there. Sometimes this guy, and I know it's like saying the curse word in Philadelphia. You got to give the Cowboys defense some credit as well too. Because you look at least with the AJ Brown stuff, the way that Trayvon Diggs, like he's still a decent player. You look at I think AJ still hampered with a hamstring. And then also over the fact that you look schematically, they were rolling over a safety or two, a safety or rolling the coverage over his way a few times. So, and Hurts was looking that way. Now,
Yeah, he was definitely looking to get him the ball.
especially that second, it seemed like right in the late second quarter, like and that is like, okay, let me, all right, cool. And then he tried to look that way too. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I mean, it's gonna be ebbs and flows. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like the Chiefs try to really like Spagnuolo really try to go out and not stop the run as much as they did in the Super Bowl. And all of a sudden we see everyone like, why do they run the ball so much? And why this one? This is the second week in a row. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens this week. So eventually they're gonna get theirs. It's going to even out. Those all passes, the way that offenses, I'd rather have Hurts find Goddard in the middle field and take what the defense gives them and keep moving that ball forward as opposed to trying to, okay, I have to force it in here over the middle. Next thing you know, the opposing team's running the other way and it just you lose turnover battle, what have you, and it gets rough. So I don't think it's anything to worry about yet. I'm surprised. Like I said, I won't be surprised to see it again this week. So it's just how the way it operates. As long as it gets points on the board and continues to put pressure on the other team to have to respond and force them to make mistakes, stay away.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out with that. Chris, what were your thoughts on AJ? One target. Obviously, a lot of news in the media, a lot of talk in the media about that. Did you think that was a big problem? What'd you make of Kevin Petula's debut?
I saw with the AJ stuff. I think he's still affected by that injury a little bit, and then missing time. He just has to ramp up a little more. We all know there's no question about the way that he works. We all know he works in the off season. We all seen everything up. We know he works hard. I just think there were some lingering effects. He'll be better this week, and he'll go on from there. And the fact that I don't think he's making a big deal out of it. Of course, he's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to Aaron Moore and goes, "Hey, listen, we want the ball a little more. Hey, we haven't gotten this," and they're making him aware about it. But it wasn't to the point where you saw like Tyreek Hill going melting down to the sidelines you saw on Sunday.
Yeah, wow.
In terms of Petulo, I look at him and I'm like, I thought that was a decent debut for him. Would I like to see more adjustments after the lightning delay? Yeah, I think that just killed the flow of the whole entire the way he was. You see that flow in that feeling you get with the play calling thing where you look like, okay, this is setting up this, and then that lightning delay stopped and it's like, okay, it broke it off. He wasn't able to get that same magic again. I like the way that they game planned around him. I like the way they attacked it that way. I just want to see. The thing I'm going to look for and continue to look for is how can he do when other teams make adjustments to the initial game plan, and that comes with time of being a play caller. It comes with how quick you can do that and on the fly because you're the one holding the play call sheet. You're the one that has to do the menu, getting all this information from the ear. They'll tell you, hey, they're playing more zone. So imagine how you use those other plays on the sheet to set up the big plays to get to better scoring opportunities. So that's the thing I'm looking for in terms of a Petula.
All right, I want to tap into the Chris Franklin panic meter when it comes to Dory Jackson. So one is Oh, he's hitting it, slamming it down. I assume that's a 10 plus. So what's the answer? Is it just Jacorian Bennett? Do you have to bring in Mike Hilton to play slot corner and move Cooper outside? What are you doing? Well, you're Vic Fangio. Put on the Vic Fangio hats. What are you doing to fix this thing?
This is the first time doing a Vanville impersonation, so I apologize. So if it's really bad, I really apologize to everybody's ears out there. Well, he's a guy. Adori's a guy. Jacorian's a guy. He'll be able to. Yeah, that's horrible. I'll stop it there. But I think when we go to Jacorian Bennett, I think that's the way you have to. I think you just go with him. You brought him in. You gave up a decent pick for him. He has enough time to learn the basics of the system. Put him in there and see what you got. I mean, it's no worse than we're seeing Adoree Jackson out there. There's a reason why the Giants didn't want to resign him. There's a reason why there was a lot of talk in New York last year about addressing the secondary, and he was one of them. I thought he would be a little bit better than what we've seen so far.
By the way, real quick, there's a lot of talk in New York about addressing everything with that disastrous organization. They can't do anything, but I digress. Continue on. Yeah, it's not just Adoree.
Yeah. It was that's stunk, especially with that pet for line. Anywho, I look at it. Yeah, there's now I've overheard talk where it's like, okay, cool, yeah, when his pass rush gets going, you don't have to cover as much. I just think you look at the defense, he's the weak link right now, and teams are going to, and also the Cowboys knew that. Schottenheimer knew that going in. He's like, we're playing on Mitchell. Oh, Adoree Jackson over there. Okay, this is where we're going. We saw what happened. I was looking to see. I just don't see it. Yeah, he's a veteran presence. Okay, yeah, help. You need a veteran guy. Like I mentioned before with some of the pass rushers. Yeah, you need a guy. I just don't. He just looks like a step off from that one. He looks like he's too worried about getting beat deep, which means that underneath stuff is going to be there all the time. He's playing so far off. The Eagles corners play off to begin with because that's what Vic likes when looking at backfield. But he really is leaning on that a lot and then step slower to try to get the drive to get to the receiver. So yeah, I'm at the point where this week you either put Jacorian Bennett there or you put Cooper DeJean out there a lot more than what you did beforehand, even though he does well in the middle of the field. I understand he gives you a lot in that nickel spot, but it comes a thing of survival. You're like, all right. Although you look at the Chiefs and you don't know if you got Worthy.
They got?
Hollywood Brown did have a good game.
I think Adoree might look like Patrick Surtain this week.
It's a C guy.
Although Ty Thornton might be able to run past him, so who knows?
They got speed on that. They got speed on the outside, so that's why another reason why I'm putting Jacorian Bennett on there. Even if Worthy's out, you got Hollywood. He saw the impact he had.
I forgot about Hollywood. Yeah, forgot about Hollywood.
About it though. I mean, Hollywood and Kelsey. I don't even know who else they got.
Not a lot. Andy's going back to. It seems like Andy's reverted back to his 2003. They tried, and he has a.
I mean, they'll get Rice back at some point. I forget how long was his suspension? I forget, but it's not going to be relevant for. Yeah, it's not going to be relevant for the Eagles because I don't think they're making it to the Super Bowl again. Not the Eagles. The Eagles might. I don't think the Chiefs are. How about the NFL as a whole? We got to sit and watch other teams, which doesn't happen often. And certainly Eagles fans don't like to watch other teams, but I assume you got to watch. What are your takeaways? My number one is the kickoff returns. They're relevant now. You better be good at that because it will cost you games. Both ends. If you have a good returner, or if you can't cover, it will cost you games this year because it's going to be relevant.
Yep, I thought the kickoff returns were really one. I thought the Packers, even though the Lions don't have the coordinator, I thought the Packers looked for real. Especially with
By the way, is there a bigger downgrade in the NFL than Ben Johnson to whoever's running the offense? Who was that? Johnny Morton? Poor Johnny Morton. Is that who's running the offense?
Although if you ask Bear fans after the second half of last night's game, they're probably like, well, maybe you should take them back because they couldn't move anything. Yeah, he ain't just no answer for them. It's crazy. Yeah, it's really bad. It's real bad. And I think if anything, it relates back to the Eagles. this is going to be imperative they would get as many wins early against some of these tougher teams before those teams really start to lock in to get that 1 seed. Because I think even though they won it last year with the 2, the Packers and Lambeau, it's something about them. Unless you name Mike Vick, you go up there and you really beat them up in there. There's something about them where they may be
I've
tougher up
said
there.
that, but I want to make a quick correct because Johnny Morton was a hell of a receiver back in his day. I don't know if you remember. That's not who I'm talking about. John Morton. So I don't want to conflate him with Johnny. This Johnny will get some shit, but John Morton is the offensive coordinator. I don't think there's a bigger downgrade in the NFL than that, but I'm with you with the Packers. The Packers, and I said it, and obviously Eagles fans are up. So now I'm a Packers fan, evidently. They're a freaking problem, Chris Franklin. Jerry Jones screwed everybody with that.
And the only thing I'm curious about, like I heard some things about the framework of a potential deal involving what the Eagles are offering. I don't know the player, but I'm curious as to what player was going to be thrown in. Because if it was the 2, the 1s, the 3, and the 5, they were saying the Cowboys saying they wanted the player. They were never going to trade him to within the division. But the Cowboys said they wanted a player, and I wonder who that player was. And that's to me the
A
fun.
lot of people talk about Jordan Davis because but Jerry spin after. I think you have to ignore Jerry spin after, which was we needed a run defender. I don't. And by the way, I don't think if the Eagles are giving up 2 1s, a 3, and a 5, I don't think they're giving up Jordan Davis on top of that. So I'm thinking more of a more of a Byron Young type, maybe, or maybe somebody with upside. Alex Hunt, somebody like that would be my guess. But I don't think you have to give Jordan Davis if you're given that much in draft capital. But that's just and by the way, it's all meaningless because it was one-sided. The Eagles were trying and they weren't listening.
So. I want to go out with you. Nah, you're not my type.
Yeah,
but I am type. I have everything you want. Nah, not happening. Yeah.
Most exciting, Chris Franklin. I'll leave it here with you. My last question. The Eagles brought in a bunch of players yesterday to work out. It's that time of year. You bring in players to build up dossiers, personnel dossiers in case of injury, that type of thing. But a lot of big names, relatively speaking, for guys on the street. You got Jamin Davis, who's a first-round pick in Washington, I think 21, 22. Isaiah Bosky was here, second-round pick from New Orleans. Quez Watkins was here. KJ Osborne was here. And then some Mike Hilton got the most hype because everybody thinks the Eagles need help at corner. And then he had a couple offensive linemen, Ladarius Henderson, Kadeem Telfort. Who gets excited? Who do you want if that's your group?
I know they're extremely deep at this position already. For me, the Jamin Davis one intrigued me. That was the one that intrigued me a lot. I still like his skill set, but I think there's still something there with him that you can utilize. I think it was more of a fact-finding mission. The 2 things I was thinking about that was either they're going to try to use one of them on the edge, one to try to generate more pass rush, so they need another guy to do that, or they're trying to look for a future. If say one of these linebackers go down, they know they can call them. They see what they want. The Quez stuff, I think it was more of a let's see if he can still return and do that return stuff, not necessarily be that receiver.
Never returned when he was here. He was the worst returner they've ever had. At least kickoff return. Well, to be a kickoff returner, you got to break that first tackle. Like Quez wasn't great at breaking tackles. Obviously, he's got great long speed. But it was interesting. I think it's more about injuries when you talk about those guys. Osborne, Watkins, Davis. It's more about injuries. Hilton was intriguing because you can play him inside and move Cooper outside. Maybe that happens. And then Bosky's very young. So evidently did nothing in New Orleans, but he's still young enough to maybe if he gets in a better situation. But yeah, I'll tell you what it tells you, though, and we talked about this earlier. Make sure you follow Chris at C Franklin News on the X platform. Read him at nj.com. This 90-man roster wasn't as good as we thought it was because they're just churning people on the back end.
And they do it's just a little bit. It's a little bit of that, but also takes a little bit depending. They bring some of these guys on depending on who they're playing that week too. So if there's a team that's like, all right, maybe they have a little bit faster receivers, maybe they have a little things in kickoff returns, what have you. That they do more of the workouts with the punters. We've seen these weird. Like,
I've talked about that with Cubby a lot. This is an example. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. An example of what the Eagles do really well. Anytime they face a left-footed punter, they bring in a left-footed punter to work out just to get some looks for their returners because it comes off the foot weird. That's the little shit the Eagles do that nobody else does. I can't say nobody, but very few. Every single time they bring in a left-footed punter.
They turned their practice squad a lot last year too, depending on the thing. Because you saw it was funny because we used to go in. It was like,
every week.
Hey, what's up?
We saw. There's sometimes they're in the locker room before they announce them. You're back. Yeah.
They're on a quick call. I think
Howie, to his credit too, he likes to. There's a. And I wish I knew how it worked. If you're on the practice squad a certain day, you get paid that week. So he likes to pay an extra guy. That's part of the way he does it. And that's another, that makes people happy. So it's another little thing they do to sort of increase morale, I would say, to get an extra guy paid. He uses a loophole. And that's why you see so much churn at the back end of the roster. But I'm glad you brought that up. Little things the Eagles always do. Makes them part of their success, Chris Franklin. And we're part of your success. Thanks for
Chris is part of our success.
You guys helped me out too. So I thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always fun to come on here. You guys done a lot. It's always fun interacting with the fans of the show and everything else too. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for always having me.
Absolutely. Chris, we love you, brother. We appreciate you for joining in today. As always, I keep telling you, man, when we didn't have you for like 3 weeks, everybody's like on my ass. Where's
everybody's complaining?
He'll be back. I think he took a summer vacation. I think he did. So it's all right, everybody. Relax. So, the people love you here. Chris, we appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Looking forward to following along on your coverage as well. So make sure you guys follow that C Franklin News. Chris, appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a good one, man.
There's Chris.
Thanks,
Franklin
bud.
joining us right here on Birds 365. Great stuff from Chris Franklin as we close in here on the end of a Tuesday show. John, wrapping up a Tuesday, getting ready for that week 2 matchup. John, one of the things that I meant to ask Chris this, one of the things that I think is maybe slipping a little bit through the cracks is just how good JAKIB Campbell. I don't think it slipped through the cracks. We talked about it, but
I meant to talk about
JAKIB Campbell was really good.
He had a great game. He had a great game.
I mean, I saw some film breakdown that people were putting out, and just obviously that one where he dropped 20 plus yards in coverage was a great play. I think JAKIB Campbell really showed, how what his type of upside looks like. I don't know how Nakobe would get on the field when he gets back healthy, but JAKIB looked really good week 1, John. Great early returns for him.
Yeah, running the pole, they call it in Tampa too. Which is very difficult to do for linebackers. That's one thing I hate about cover 2 is what the stress it puts on linebackers. Not a lot of guys can do that. So shows you his athleticism, but I don't think anybody doubted his athleticism. One of the things I did talk about yesterday is these idiot teams are, he's not going to be ready for week 1. And boy, I hate that mentality. What a loser mentality that is. And I'm not even talking about the fact that he beat expectations or he beat the timetable that most had on him, and he's on the field week 1. Like, I don't even care if he's not on the field week 1. Obviously, he played very well. But long term, if you're drafting the guy in the first round with the 15th pick, say, you're talking about long term. Who gives a shit if he's on the field week 1? So the larger theme there is Another really good player lands in Philadelphia because
Yep.
there's a bunch of idiot teams around this league. Pretty much.
You're right.
That's my take on Jahad Campbell. But tremendous athlete. But everybody knew that. I don't think it's going to be that good every week. But if it is, well, look out. But, he'll, like any rookie, he'll have some ups and downs. But really, really good first performance.
Really shows you kind of the upside of the potential, John, of that linebacking room too, with Zach Bond, who had a great game as well. I mean, some people maybe didn't see that so early, but when you went back and kind of watched the tape, Zach Bond was once again everywhere, all over the place, making plays, backfield, making plays down the field with Miles Sanders. I mean, they got a really good linebacker room. What do you think it looks like when Jakobi returns? Is it kind of just sorry, or do you think that Vic tries to find a way to get them all on the field? I know it's not going to be a 43. I know that we're not going to go into that conversation, but I'm just saying, is there a way where Vic tries to get them all on the field? What do you think?
Well, he does have tremendous respect for Jakobi. A lot of things have to happen. One, Jakobi's got to get back. He said week 5 doesn't mean he's going to be back week 5. 2, he's got to prove that he's healthy and he's what he was before, because that's a very serious injury and he might not be the same impact. 3, Jahad's, where is he playing? He had a great first game. Does that continue? What I will say, if it continues and he plays the same way he played week 1, he's not leaving the field. Jahad Campbell. Maybe he goes into a slump. Maybe it's a lot worse at that. So there's a lot of hurdles to be clear. And I'm sure Vic would tell you we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And, a lot of things could happen between now and that conversation. But what I can tell you is Vic has a lot of respect for Nakobe Dean.
Which respect is one thing. I just don't know how you get him on the field. I mean, if you have Jahad Campbell playing like he is.
Well, I just said if he continues to play like he did in week 1, he's not coming off the field. But that's unlikely.
I know, but don't you also think that the fact that he showed that the upside is there in a real game now would lead them to also want to keep him on the field? Like, it's one thing if he struggled week 1 through 4 and you still believe in the player, but you're like, all right, I haven't even seen it yet. Week 1, he's showing it. Even if he falls back a little bit, week 2, week 3, week 4, you're like, man, we saw what it will look like when it looks good. Let's keep him on the field and let him get to that point.
Well, and that's why Vic will say, settle down. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But right. That's the point of, like, you can see it in games. All right. How quickly did the sea change in Buffalo? How quickly did the sea change last night in Chicago? In games, things move quickly in the NFL. Some guys look like world beaters one day, and they look like they're overmatched the next day. There's a long way to go, but if Jahad Campbell keeps playing like he does in week 1, he's not leaving the field. And then if he wants Nakobe on the field, he's going to have to find out ways to get them both on the field, because Zach's not leaving the field either. Yeah, now, that doesn't mean a 4-3 to your point. Yeah. That means maybe they continue to struggle on the edge. Yeah. Maybe Zadarius Smith doesn't click like I think he's going to click.
Or Jalix. I mean, maybe you need some depth at the edge.
Maybe Jalix. A lot of things can happen. A lot of moving parts. And the beauty, and I'm sure if it gets asked that question, I don't think he will, but if he got that asked question today, he'll say, it's week 2. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I don't, because Nakobe Dean says he's going to be back in week 5 does not mean he's going to be back in week 5.
Yeah, right. Right. An Instagram story is not a verification that Nakobe is back for week 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be week 8. It might be week 10. And Lord knows, somebody might get hurt. And you might need him when he's ready to come back. So a lot of things could happen. And as the of all the football cliches, and there's a million of them, the one that resonates the most is control what you can control. And you don't have to control anything that's in the future. You got to control what's going on now.
Yeah. John, this is a common line of thinking, and I know you're going to shred it, but I do think it's worth addressing real quick and just explaining again. I know you have before, but I know Thomas is newer to our show. He says Vic likes athletic linebackers, right? Would they play a 4-3 base with Coop on the outside? Dean is a better linebacker than Jackson is a cornerback. So wouldn't that formation get the best 11 on the field? In theory, he's right, but just your response on why that's very unlikely.
Well, defense is reactionary. So you can say, and yes, Nakobe Dean, a healthy Nakobe Dean is a better football player than Adoree Jackson. Nakobe Dean is not a better football player than Adoree Jackson when there's 3 receivers on the field and you have to cover receivers.
Right.
It's different roles. Defense is reactionary. If the offense is playing 11 personnel, which is the default setting for most of the NFL, you got to play nickel. But even from the standpoint of the and Zander knows this, and I apologize to newer viewers, like the whole mindset of labeling things I hate because the game has evolved to a certain degree. 4-3-4-3 or old 4-3-3-4 are antiquated terms. The Eagles never use them. Never, Bick said, do you ever see, he was asked that question in camp because a lot of people have the old school mindset. Do you ever see a point where you have 3 linebackers on the field for the exact reason that he asked this question? Because they have 3 good linebackers in theory, if Nakobe comes back. And he said, not at this time was his answer.
Right. He kind of
unless
you got to add that in. He kind of chuckled.
The game has changed. You have to react to what's on the field. And a lot of times there's 4. A lot of times there's spread receivers. A lot of times there's running backs playing receiver, tight ends playing receiver. You need defensive backs on the field to cover those guys. It's the reality of the NFL. The second part of it, though, is if you want to go the antiquated routes, because a lot of people are married to the 4-3-3-4 terms. The Eagles are a 3-4 team by that definition.
Right.
Because Mick likes it's not 2 gap, but they call it gap and a half. Whereas 4-3, I think Jim Schwartz is more aggressive, attacking, going upfield. Vic is more of the gap and a half, 2 gap type defensive coordinator.
Good stuff there. Farzetta, thank you, brother, for the super chat. I appreciate you, my man. Good stuff there. Great stuff all throughout on the show today. I want to thank everybody for being here. Had a great crowd as always. So hit that like button for us, guys. We got to start getting those like numbers back to season levels. They should be at least 200 for the live show. And then I'm hoping 300 to 350 with the
big numbers, though. I like the listeners. A lot of people.
A lot of people listening, no doubt, Johnny Mac. John, good stuff, man. Your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition of Birds 365?
I got to get out of here. Coordinator day.
Yep. All right, Johnny Mac. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. Talk to you tomorrow.
All right. See you, everybody.
All right. See you, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us here on Birds 365. Another great day. And as John pointed out, a lot of people listening, man, over, and again, another show of up to almost 1,500 people across all the platforms. I know we have about 700 on YouTube right now. So a big thanks to everybody for being here. All my people. I love all you guys. Keith Johnson. What up, Keith? Akbeezy Fashizi. What up, Akbar? Flexing and Steppin's in here. My guy, Chuck Hutton. What's up, Chuck? Philly fangirl who is famously Bird Gang girl. And apparently the chat has bullied her out of her name, which is bullshit. She's the original Bird Gang girl. All right. Tank Bird Gang is in here. David LaPrade, Flexing and Steppin, M. Reyes, Fredo Vic, Joe Whip. All the legends are in here. Keese is in here. Kirsten's in here. A-Team is in here. Killer Tomato. Gotta love it. Appreciate everybody for being here, man. Great stuff so far today. What'd you guys think of the Tank Bigsby trade? What'd you guys think of the Tank Bigsby trade? That's where I'm going to go on Zander time today. I don't have a lot of time. I have a meeting at 10:30 this morning, and I also have some stuff to do before that meeting, so probably 10:15-ish, I'll be getting out of here. So that means I got 11 minutes to kick it with you here on Zander Time. What do you guys think of the Tank Bigsby move? I don't know if I can – I think, yes, they wanted a kick returner. Yes, that makes sense to me. Like, if there's more kick returns, the Eagles want to be good at it. That makes sense. They like field position. They want to win on the margins. That's part of the way they operate, part of what makes them a good football team. But don't you feel like Tank is a little bit better than just a kick returner? Like, I feel like Tank Bigsby's pretty good. I mean, I liked Tank Bigsby last year when he was on the Jags. I mean, he had almost 800 yards behind that shitty offensive line. What can that guy who has 800 yards behind that offensive line do behind our offensive line? You know? So, I don't know. I'll take some comments here. Slager says, Mike Florio really wants a suspension, it appears. PFT is a headline that an NFL source suspension is still on the table. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me one bit that Mike Florio wants a suspension. Mike Florio is a nerd and a sucker. I don't really have anything against Florio, to be honest with you. I'm just saying, if he wants Jalen Carter to get suspended, he can go kick rocks. Josh Prout says, giving up 2 picks is a lot, but I think Howie sweetened that deal for another future one. See, Josh, you're thinking like I am. John thinks I'm a little bit crazy with that thought process, but when you're Howie Roseman, Josh, and you have a reputation for winning every trade, in order to win a trade with a new GM, there's a process and a way to go about it. And Josh, I agree with you. I think you gotta. Oh, they sent me a 5 and a 6 for Tank. They're not out to get me. Howie's not out to get me. So Flexen says Tank running back too. Now, I want people to answer this honestly. And if you haven't watched Tank Bigsby on tape at all, then you probably shouldn't answer at all. And Curtis says it's because I don't like Shipley. It's actually not. I know, Curtis, I was hard on Shipley, but he looked awesome in week 1. And I think he's a great change of pace for the Eagles offense with Barkley. And I know he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But for anybody who's aware of Tank Bigsby, maybe you watched him in college, maybe you watched him a little bit in Jacksonville, maybe you're just a football honk and you know all the players. Does anybody really think that Will Shipley's a better running back than Tank Bigsby? Does anybody really think that Tank Bigsby is not the second best running back on the football team right now? Now, I don't know. Maybe people will think I'm cuckoo, and maybe people will say Will Shipley's better. I think Tank Bigsby is the second best running back on the football team. And I don't know. Yeah, so I think you guys are agreeing with me that you think Tank is better than Shipley. Again, I'm Curtis. I'm really not even trying to put Shipley out to pasture. I like Shipley. I think he's shown some things. I think he's progressing nicely for a year 2 player. But I don't know, man. Tank Bigsby's got some explosive. He's explosive and he's physical. He runs hard. Real hard. I like that. So put that behind this offensive line. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not, again, Flex, I'm with you. I'm really not trying to have anything against Shipley. I like Shipley. I hope Shipley's a part of the team. And Shipley is hurt right now. Yes, thank Bird Gang. But exactly, JB3. 1 cut back and he runs hard. Boom. Puts his foot in the dirt, gets north and south, and puts his shoulder down and hits. I don't know. I think Tank Bigsby has a bigger opportunity on this offense to do more for this team than just kick return. While I do understand and I agree with John that kick return is probably the prominent use for that player. If kick returns are becoming more prominent in the NFL, newsflash, everybody, the Eagles aren't going to fall behind at it. They're not. That's part of what makes Howie a great GM. They don't want to fall behind on anything like that. So that makes sense. I'm just simply speculating that there could be more here than just kick returner. I think he's a good back. I'm telling you guys, go toss on YouTube after I end Birds 365. Go type in YouTube Tank Bigsby highlights and go and watch him. He's a fun back to watch. Doesn't mean he's going to be that here or whatever, but gather the intel and you let me know what you think. I'll be here tomorrow morning and every morning like I always am. We'll talk about it all through the season as we always do. But Philly 2 Chicago says, Tank is built like a brick shithouse. I know, man. He really is. Curtis says, Z, I feel better about the room if, God forbid, something happens to Saquon. That's a good way to look at it too, Curtis. That's a good way to look at it too. Perhaps some insurance there, knowing, the fate of a lot of 2,000-yard running backs in our league, Josh B, he didn't even say college. He hit me with, don't even talk to me about him in Jacksonville. I'm like, wait a second. You tell me Myles Garrett's just a great player on a shitty team. Now Tank Bigsby puts up good numbers in Jacksonville, and you don't want to hear about it? Come on, John. Come on, John. Pass pro suspect, Twiz. I think it's suspect. I'd have to go and look, but I don't think Tank is I think that's one of his Achilles heels. I do. I think it's one of his Achilles heels. So I'm just doing a little bit more research on the pass protection element of it. He's inconsistent, to say the least. So Big Trag says, asking the real questions, is Tank a starter in Dallas? You got to think so, right? They were running Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams actually ran pretty hard in week 1. I give him credit for running hard against the Eagles. But, yeah, he's not a great number 1 overall. Dirty Air. What's up, Dirty Air? Appreciate everybody, by the way, for being here today, man. Always a great crowd. I love each and every one of the great people of JAKIB Nation. You make what I do such a blessing and a fun thing to do for a living. So thanks, everybody. Dirty Air. Shipley could be a solid BVS replacement with Tank moving to running back too. So Dirty Air he's already slotting them in. Shipley, where are you going? Because Tank is running back too. Yo, by the way, one note off the field for a second. Are you kidding? That is like a Hall of Fame name. That is a Hall of Fame football name. Tank Bigsby? That is like that is a Hall of Fame name by a country mile. Tank Bigsby as a running back in football? Tank Bigsby. Are you kidding me? That is an iconic football name, dude. That is an iconic football name. It really is an iconic football name. Texas T says, if Tank is a returner, what's going on with Covey? Isn't that why we got him back? Yeah, I'm not sure, Texas T. I think some of those things are going to kind of answer themselves, but it is a good question by you. I don't know what Covey is. Texas T, I'm not going to lie to you. I liked Britton Covey and all, but I'm good if he doesn't pan out. I'm good if we got Tank Bigsby and Britton Covey's done. No disrespect to you, Britton, but I'm trying to win Super Bowls here. I don't know. Covey is meh. And Covey, right, that's right. Covey does do punts more than kicks. Eagles got practice today. I think they do have practice today, yes. Thomas Farzetta says, I like getting Dotson the ball more even as a punt returner. You and me both, my friend. Dotson has showed progress. I mean, obviously the big catch the other night, but I kind of like what Dotson's potential is in this team. Xander about to make me go get a coffee. Yeah, Flex, you need one, brother. It's a little chilly out today, man. A little nipply. I don't have a sweatshirt on. I'm a little nipply in this. I'm a little nipply. 5'11", 2 of 15 in NFL running back, and named Tank is a life win. That's true, Josh. The name is iconic. I love it. I got to be honest. All right, I got to be honest. Here's Clary Boy. What's up, Clary Boy? Good to see you, my friend. The talk about cornerback 2 would have been here regardless if we kept Slay or not. Slay got burnt on Sunday against the Jets. He worked a little bit better than what we got, Clary Boy. All right. Sounds like a character on Family Guy. It sounds like an NFL back to me. Sounds like an NFL back, a beastie NFL back. Tank Bigsby. All right. And here's Crowley. Crowley, sometimes you just love to pop the air in the balloon, Crowley. I kind of love that about you, Crowley. But you do love to do it. He says, It's a Hall of Fame name, but it's not a Hall of Fame player. And he just quickly pops the balloon. All right. I don't give a shit about his name. He's not a Hall of Famer. All right, Crowley. All right, Crowley. I know you wanted to pop the balloon. Wild Bear's in here. What's up, Wild Bear? I appreciate you for being here. Chuck says, good move getting Tank. I like it too. That's why I was kind of like, oh, John, you're telling me it's only kick returner? But kick returner is going to be a bigger thing. So, hey, maybe the Eagles can win again on the margins and kind of get there, you know? Sills, Cooper is best inside. Buddy kept saying it. Hey, he's talking about football, pump. Only a corn-brained guy like you would think otherwise. Get off the corn! I didn't think I'd be hitting you guys with that on week 2 of the NFL season, but I am because Brian Pumper has invited it into the show. Get off the corn! Come on, Pumper! Holy moly. Brian Waddington says that was a steep price for Tank. Well, it is if it's just a returner. All right? It is if it's just a returner. But, you know, remember, Brian Waddington, I'll point you to this because I do think it's valid. Might be rich, 5 and a 6, but I'll point to the last 3 drafts that Howie's had and go and look at day 3 and look at how many trades Howie made on day 3. Up the board, down the board, acquiring more picks, moving picks, trading away picks, bringing back picks, trading for DeAndre Swift. I'm not worried about if Howie wants to get more 5th and 6th round picks, he will easily be able to do it. So I can't really worry about it too much. All right. HKP says, those boys are addicted. Yeah, it's a problem, HKP. I'd be cooking Zander on a daily. No, you don't, Pumper. Pumper, you wish. You wish. R. Anthony says, is it depth moves or these injuries are more serious? Potentially. All right. Potentially. HKP says, I let my membership run out to become a legend. Thank you, bro. You got to do it from the computer, HK. I don't know, man. YouTube is a pain in my ass. YouTube is a royal pain in my ass. Really pisses me off, but whatever. Dirty Air says, I can assure you, if us couch coaches know how good Tank can be at RB2, Howie does too. Here's Bob Brown. Thanks, sis. Here's Bob Brown. Paying a 5th and a 6th for a kick returner is very high. Bigsby in that room will push Shipley and is a perfect insurance policy for Dylan and his neck. Agreed, Bob. Good pragmatic take. Good pragmatic take. All right. So I got to go. Thank you, Prince, for reminding me. Yo, Prince. Yeah, what are you looking for work, Prince? You need me to hire? You want me to hire you as my assistant or something, Prince? Now refer to Prince as Assistant Prince. Assistant Prince. I might have to stay on here till 10:30 now, just to spite this dude. Just to spite this dude. I'm just kidding, Prince. I love you, Prince. Don't play with me, Fernando. Don't play with me, Fernando. They calling Kyler Murray a Labubu. Yeah, that was ridiculous. What is up with the NFL players and these outfits? I don't understand. Like, why do you do that? Like, why do they wear some of this shit? I don't really care, to be honest, but it is funny to look at. All right. Eagles feeding the beat reporters crumbs. Bigsby is more than a returner. I'm with you, Balenci. I'm with you. All right. I'm with you. All right, everybody. I love you guys. I appreciate you, including you, Prince. You know, I love you, Prince. All right, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Hit that like button. Drop your comments down below if you haven't already. All super chats are appreciated today. So thank you very much for doing it. We've had great crowds. So make sure you guys are hitting that like button to keep helping us grow here on JAKIB Sports. Had a great month of August. We're having so far a great month of September. Game 1. We set some records for the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel, so I do want to thank you guys for that, and that's much appreciated, and it's all thanks to you guys. So big thanks to everybody. Hit the like button on the way out. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.